Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. We are going to jump into the Warhammer 40K universe with this video here with Arbiter Ian as our host. We're checking out a video of his Erebus, the Horriblest Heretic of them all, Warhammer 40K. You know, from everything that I've gone through and read so far about things with Horus Heresy, it should have been the Erebus Heresy, as he really kind of started everything and led Horus down to the route of the traitor. So I'm interested to see what Arbitor Ian has to say about him in this video and to learn more about him. Maybe what his origins are, his home planet, and what led him to be, you know, down the road of corruption from chaos. So we're gonna check out that video. As always, links will be down below in the description to this original video without my commentary and reaction, and to Arbitor Ian's channel. Please do me a favor and click on his video. Go over there and give it a like if you enjoy it. Check out his channel. He does a lot of great Warhammer 40K content. He's definitely a content creator that deserves some love, so check out his channel. Give him a sub if you would like to. We're doing this reaction live, so if you would like to come join in the discussions that we have before, during, and after, please do me a favor. Click the join button down below. See if any of the YouTube membership benefits I offer have any interest to you. Love to have you guys in here and come hang out and join in our discussions as we do these reactions. But regardless, I just appreciate you guys hanging out and watching this video. So yeah, let's just jump into it. Again, we're doing a video on Erebus, the horriblest heretic of them all, Warhammer 40K lore. So, get into it here.
Of a distant desert planet, a small child sits in the hard-packed dust, engaging in the traditional pastime of a certain sort of child, pulling the legs off of the local wildlife. But this particular creature is no spider or fly, it's a poisonous desert scorpion. This pastime has landed the child in trouble before, laid up in the sickbed with a fever, even potentially close to death. But he keeps doing it anyway, thrilled by the feeling of being close to danger and the intoxicating power he holds over the creature if he succeeds. It's a feeling he would continue to chase his whole life, with creatures way more powerful than a mere scorpion. Today, we're going to talk about the horriblest heretic of them all, the unequivocal biggest bastard in 40K, Erebus.
Yeah, all my homies hate Erebus, for sure.
Erebus is a dick. Born into squalor, he would eventually rise to become one of the most prominent figures of the Great Crusade and one of the chief architects of the Horus Heresy, the first chaplain of the Word Bearers, the Hand of Destiny, Dark Apostle of Chaos. It was his actions more than any other that laid the ground for the collapse of the nascent Imperium and the galactic civil war that followed, and in the 41st millennium he remains a significant threat to the Imperium. But his actions were never really the result of some grand plan or long-term ambition on his part, but a series of opportunities taken and an unwavering belief that he was exactly where he needed to be. The child that would eventually become...
So he had this idea that he was exactly where he was supposed to be and doing exactly what he was supposed to do. And maybe that is the case. Maybe he had an influence from the chaos since he was born, and they were kind of, he was kind of, you know, maybe a little wild card in the deck of the chaos gods to play against the emperor with some of the stuff that was going on. You know, who knows? Who knows?
Erebus was not born to a prominent family or an ancient martial culture. He was, in his own words, gutter trash.
Like I told you before, I ain't worried about spoils. I've been spoiled on too many things. As long as it's not, you know, like Elden Ring or Dark Souls spoils for games that I haven't played yet, it's fine.
Born into a poor settlement on the desert planet of Colchis, he had little regard for, well, anything really. He hated the heat and the poverty and the dust, and probably sand too.
Yep. Was literally about to say this meme. But I clicked too, you know, wasn't fast enough on the draw here.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating.
He hated his parents and resisted all their attempts to encourage him to learn a trade or take education. He existed in a world of casual violence and
sounds like an asshole in general, yeah.
A delinquent, until eventually he saw a way out. One of the many things he had little regard for was faith. The culture of Colchis was intensely religious, ruled over by a church known as the Covenant, who worshipped the Old Faith, a pantheon of 4 great powers. While it might have been that the Covenant were a pious and worthy organisation in the big cities, out in the poor settlements, most of the preachers and priests were corrupt, easily swayed by drink, fed by the populace and spending the alms they collected on their own appetites. And despite not really caring for religion itself, our subject thought a life of petty power over the ignorant faithful sounded pretty good. And so one night he took his chance. He crept up on the settlement's star pupil, a boy he'd always been unfavourably compared to, and strangled him to death, stealing his identity. He shaved his head like the boy, adopted the pious child's practice of inking holy text on his skin, dressed himself in the dead boy's clothes, and even stole his name, Erebus, vanishing off into the desert. Soon he was a novice in the capital city of Varadesh, sweeping the floors while learning by rote the words and sayings, walking the walk of the corrupt priests, when something unexpected happened. In the mirrors of an altar, he caught his first glimpse of what truly lay beyond, the basis for the old faith, a vision of the chaos powers.
I was going to say they worshipped 4 gods. Were they any kind of actual reference to the chaos gods, you know? I was going to say that. So it's interesting that that is exactly the case. Andrew's right, John. The Covenant are actually worshipping chaos on accident. Yeah.
I felt a shiver run through me, despite the ever-present heat. I was a petty thief, a minor speck within the iris of eternity, but I knew I could do things for these presences I felt that had always been there, lingering over my minor cruelty.
So if right from the get-go, he was a psychopath and, like, was just all about chaos. He kind of, I guess, seems to have, like, a connection from chaos in general. And was just happy to do these weird things. Interesting.
The Covenant was their plaything. Perhaps other institutions could be used in a similar way. Faith is
He's literally an agent of chaos. Interesting.
Interesting word for what Erebus had gained. He certainly believed that the chaos powers were real and powerful, and he should serve them, but how much of it was his desire to be close to the centre of that power, to be on the edge of something dangerous, is uncertain. Either way, from this point on, he dedicated himself to their service, trusting that their plans would always make sure he was in the right place, at the centre. And soon, the Covenant itself underwent huge changes. The Primarch Lorgar appeared from the desert, alongside his foster father, the ancient preacher Cor Pharaon, leading a crusading army and converting the Covenant to a new faith. Lorgar was the prophet of the one true God, the master of mankind, who arrived soon after, and he converted them once again, this time to the light of reason and science, the imperial truth. The youth of Colchis was swept up in the recruitment campaigns of the 17th Legion, the Imperial Heralds, who were soon to be renamed by their newly found Primarch, dubbed...
I mean, again, it's one of those ironies on the 40K universe. You know, he's got main character syndrome. He thinks that, you know, he's the main protagonist of his little anime arc here, when the Chaos Gods don't even care about him. He thinks he's serving their will, but he doesn't, they don't even know who he is. They're one of the Primarchs, and he brought them to them, and that's what he was good for. Yeah.
The Bearers, who were soon to be renamed by their newly found Primarch, dubbed the Bearers of the Word, and despite this new era of...
Well, and I mean, that's kind of the whole shtick with Chaos too, right? They let people believe they're in control as a form of temptation to get them in deeper until they're in too deep and they have no control. Like, they have control at the beginning to choose whether to follow Chaos or reject it. But once they start following it and they get in deep enough, they don't have that choice anymore.
Reason, dubbed the Bearers of the Word, and despite this new era of reason, it was clear what the word was. that the Emperor was a god.
Bird is always the word.
Reason, it was clear what the word was, that the Emperor was a god and Lorgar his servant, a belief encouraged within the new Word-Bearers Legion, even if it was at odds with the Imperium at large. But through all this change and turmoil, Erebus stayed true, confident that his Chaos Gods had a plan. He made sure he was at the centre of this new power. When Lorgar appeared, he outwardly became one of the faithful, professing his devotion to the new creed in the sure knowledge that the Emperor was in truth his enemy. When the Legion arrived, he underwent the trials and surgeries required willingly, despite thinking them monstrous. Within the Legion, he distinguished himself not as a commander or a strategist, but as a preacher, an advisor, and became one of the Word-Bearers' chaplains, preaching the...
He's literally like that guy in Lord of the Rings, Snake, the dude who's corrupting Theoden or whatever and sitting by his side, just spitting poison into his ear. That's literally Erebus. It's literally Erebus.
The good news of the God Emperor to the populations the Legion subjugated, and biding his time until an opportunity arose. And that time, after decades of warfare in the name of his enemy, was to come after the censuring of the 17th Legion at the hands of the Emperor and of the Ultramarines.
Yeah.
36 years before...
I do have to say it did seem a little harsh, the Emperor's lesson there, you know, kind of doing that scorched earth policy of Lorgar's homeworld or whatever to like make him understand that he is not to be a god and worshipped. You know, I will say it was a little harsh, you know, in my opinion. You didn't have to take it that far.
For the ascensions of the Emperor.
But who am I to go against the Emperor? You know, who am I?
And of the Ultramarines. 36 years before the ascension of Horus to Warmaster, the Emperor summoned the entire Word-Bearers Legion to the planet of Kur, a planet originally brought into compliance by the Word-Bearers and now fanatically religious. The capital city, Monarchia, was known by them as the Perfect City, a city of great cathedrals and monuments to the God Emperor. It was in ruins. After years of troubling reports, the Emperor had decided to act. Constant slow progress by the Legion as they took the time to indoctrinate their conquests, and the evidence that they had continued to worship the Emperor as a god went directly against the tenets of the Imperial truth, and as the Great Crusade was coming to an end, enough was enough. The Emperor had descended to Kur alongside the Ultramarines Legion, who had emptied the Perfect City and then annihilated it from orbit. When the Word-Bearers arrived, they were forced to kneel in the dust of Monarchia and were rebuked by the Emperor. He was not a god, and their worship must stop. The intention here was to serve a warning and teach a lesson. The Emperor thought that the Word-Bearers were still redeemable, that Lorgar could still be brought round, and the choice of the Ultramarines was a deliberate one. The Ultramarines were also empire builders and governors, leaders who aimed for a future of unity, and their secular empire of Ultramar was both forward-thinking and fast-growing. But
so they were kind of the opposites of the Word-Bearers, where it was, yeah. I gotcha. Oh, here comes Big E. Yeah, burns Jerusalem, Electric Boogaloo.
Lorgar didn't take this as a warning. He felt humiliated and his faith was shattered. Without direction, he went into seclusion, and in this moment of weakness,
when Erebus got hold of him,
made his move. By this point, Erebus had risen high in the Legion. He was first chaplain, a confidant to the Primarch, and the inked lettering had long been replaced with tattooed scripture from the Book of Lorgar across his scalp. It was Erebus, alongside Corphaeron, who reminded Lorgar of the old faith of Colchis. Erebus and Corphaeron, the Primarch's adopted father and now first captain of the Legion, never really got on, too often rivals for the Primarch's attention, but they both knew of the old faith, and they both witnessed evidence of its variants as they'd fought the Great Crusade. Versions of the old faith, or things similar to it, being found on a multitude of worlds in their path. If the Emperor truly was no god, maybe Lorgar would be interested in some real eldritch powers. It was Erebus and Corphaeron who organised the pilgrimage, Lorgar's quest.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was one of the mistakes that the Emperor made. I mean, I guess really it's a situation where, like, what else could you really do about it? But the fact that, Erebus has this need to have a belief in something greater, to worship something. And so you're obviously trying to deny that to him. And the idea of not replacing it, giving him something else to believe in, whether, I don't know. You don't want it to, be yourself, and you don't want to come off as a god yourself, but you got to give something to fill that void, right? Especially being that you as the Emperor know about the Chaos Gods and how easy it is for them to, get their claws into someone, especially someone like, Lorgar, who has a need to worship something. I feel like that was one of the big mistakes that the Emperor made. Or potentially could have been part of his plan. Could have seen it all along. Could have been part of his plan. Who knows? But I feel like that's something that, like, he would have thought about and would have tried to have done something about, fill that void so that the Chaos Gods wouldn't have taken, that. I feel like that's something he would have done. But at the same time, I know he was very much pressed to get the Webway project underway and to try to finish it before other things happened and, chaos became known. I think that's what one of his ultimate goals was really trying to do, was to get access to the Webway and try to move or start a society of humanity in the Webway, whether it was move Terra into the Webway or create something else in the Webway for humanity to move to, that they had protection from the warp, and then he could take the time to really teach the Primarchs and everyone, about chaos and how to battle and protect themselves from it, etc., etc. But that's just my personal theory. Anyway, let's continue.
It was Erebus and Corpheron who organised the Pilgrimage, Lorgar's quest into the Eye of Terror for proof of the Chaos powers, and when he had that proof, it was Erebus and Corpheron who slowly corrupted the entire Legion to the worship of Chaos over the next few decades. Now able to act somewhat openly, the word-bearers were on paper still loyal, but the galaxy's a big place, Erebus was able to put more plans into action. He journeyed to the recently conquered world of Davin, and finding the ruins of an ancient chaos-worshipping society there, ordered the locals to start rebuilding their old temples, foreseeing that they might come in handy one day. Over the next few years, Lorgar would send out emissaries to many of the legions under the guise of spreading the role of chaplain, but also with instructions to create alternate power structures throughout them. The warrior lodges, so common in the late Crusade. Yep. As first chaplain, Erebus was dispatched to the Lunar Wolves as chaplain to Horus himself, and he quickly became well known throughout that legion, a confidant of the Warmaster and a regular in the training cages, sparring against the Lunar Wolves captains. It was from that position, again close to the centre of power, that he was able to make his next most fateful move. During a diplomatic visit to a rediscovered human civilization known as the Interrex, Erebus stole an ancient demon weapon.
See, I'm about to hit that right now, I think, in the book that I'm at, in the Horus Rising book. I am at a point where they're fighting the Megarachnids on the planet Murder, and I think they're about to wrap that up in this next chapter. And I believe the Interrex are the human race that come in and are like, yo, dog, this planet was under quarantine, and then they somehow convince the Imperium to leave, and then it leads to this. I think, from what I have been through from the lore already, I think that's where I'm at. So we'll see what happens as we get through the book. So that should be the next section of the book. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm getting ready to hit this point. It's interesting because I was wondering, up until hearing this, they had already mentioned in the book about Horus meeting with Erebus on Davin 5, or one of the Davin planets, and, you know, getting the lodges established. So I had wondered if at this point in the book where I was at, had Horus already been corrupted, but he was just hiding it. You know, because there had been a chapter where he was having a private conversation with Loken after the incident at the Whisper Peaks, and he kind of had a moment where he let his guard down, and he was kind of frustrated at the idea that the Emperor wasn't informing him on what he had to go back and work at. You know, even him, the War Master, the favorite of all his children, wasn't privy to this secret, even though I think Malcador probably was. And, you know, a lot of the Primarchs resented the Emperor's relationship with Malcador, being that he was only human, even though he was potentially the greatest psyker next to the Emperor, you know, ever created in the human species so far as I know. So yeah, I'd wondered if it was a situation Horus saw being corrupted, but I guess not. That doesn't happen, I don't think, until Horus gets wounded by this blade, if I remember correctly, and then goes into like a fever dream, and then Erebus leads him into the warp to meet the Chaos Gods and yada yada, if I remember my lore correctly. Yeah, I think he's compromised with them, but not fallen yet. Right.
Anathame, prompting a war when the Interrex discovered its loss. He passed this anathame in secret to Eugen Temba, the new governor of Davin, who was eventually corrupted by it and turned traitor against the Imperium. When news of this reached the War Master, Erebus stoked Horus's need for vengeance, since Davin had first been brought into compliance by the Lunar Wolves. In a meeting on the surface, he framed
Horus not corrupted until the second look. He has doubts, and Erebus is probably whispering in his ear, but Horus still gotcha. Yeah, after reading this, that's kind of what I figure. Or after hearing this.
Erebus stoked Horus's need for vengeance, since Davin had first been brought into compliance by the Lunar Wolves. In a meeting on the surface, he framed Temba as betraying not just the Imperium, but Horus himself, leading Horus to go after Temba personally. The resulting duel on the moon of Davin saw Horus wounded by the demon weapon and struck into a deep coma, whereupon Erebus convinced the now Sons of Horus captains to allow him to seek a spiritual cure, sequestering the War Master away in the Serpent Lodge on Davin, the same one he'd ordered reconstructed a few years before. In the warp, Erebus had the priests of Davin project him into Horus's consciousness, where he enacted his true masterpiece, corrupting Horus to the side of chaos. He showed him visions of a nightmare future where Horus's contributions were forgotten. He framed the Emperor as a liar and a murderer, and played on Horus's sense of wounded pride at being left to run the crusade on his own. By the end, Horus was resigned to rebellion. How much of all of this was like meticulously pre-planned is impossible to tell. Erebus had a habit of putting things in motion and then waiting to see how they could be best turned to the service of his masters. Though the intention was obviously to corrupt Horus eventually, just like with the corruption of Lorgar, it's likely that Erebus just waited until an opportunity presented itself and then took it, trusting that with the theft of the anathame, events could be manipulated to his favour. But
I guess it's one thing you can say about Erebus. The man knows when to shoot a shot, and he's hitting his mark every time.
But however it was planned, Horus did eventually fall. During the early heresy, Erebus stayed by the side of the War Master, planning the culling of the legions at Isstvan III, and later being instrumental in the betrayal at the Drop Site Massacre.
Damn, so he was even involved at the culling of Isstvan III and the planning of the Isstvan V massacre. God damn, Erebus has some blood on his hands, brother. Good lord.
Legions at Isstvan III, and later being instrumental in the betrayal at the Drop Site Massacre on Isstvan V. But after the Drop Site Massacre, he rejoined his legion as they journeyed to the Eastern Fringe and participated in the Battle of Calth, eventually declaring the betrayal of the Ultramarines and the millions dead at Calth a great sacrifice to the Dark Gods, and raising the Ruin Storm, a vast warp storm that would keep the Eastern Galaxy and the Loyalist legions active there isolated from events on Terra and unable to intervene. From there, Erebus joined his Primarch Lorgar and the World Eaters Legion on the Shadow Crusade, rampaging through the worlds of Ultramar, but it was here that he started to overstep his mark with both his own Primarch and with the War Master. Seeing himself as the true hand of the gods, he became more and more arrogant. Attempting to corrupt a third Primarch, he pushed for the deployment of the Blood Angels and their Primarch, Sanguinius, to Cygnus Prime, something Lorgar strongly disagreed with, and during the Shadow Crusade, experiencing visions from his patrons, he murdered Argyle Tal, leader of the Word-Bearers Galvorbak and one of Lorgar's favourites, when he saw that Argyle Tal's friendship with Khan of the World Eaters would stop Khan becoming the chosen of the Chaos Power Core.
Interesting.
This on its own led to a narrow escape. When he found himself fighting for his life against Khan in the World Eaters' dueling pits, he narrowly managed to escape through the use of dark magic, but it wasn't the last wound he was going to suffer from an ally. When he returned to the War Master's side and found that the plan to corrupt the Blood Angels had failed, he raged at Horus himself, blaming him for the failure of his plan.
Oh shit, that's a no-no, brother. That's asking to get a beat down.
Using Erebus's own Athame dagger, flayed the chaplain's tattooed flesh from his skull and banished him from his sight for his insolence.
Damn.
He was now somewhat removed from the centre of power, unwelcome in the court of Horus or at the side of Lorgar, but for the rest of the heresy, Erebus continued to manipulate events to the benefit of the Dark Gods, turning up at various pivotal moments to be a bastard all over the place, led only by his visions and his use of Athame daggers to cut through space-time, sometimes in disguise and sometimes making use of allies within the traitor legions. He dispatched Word-Bearers forces to Traoris.
Well, I think that's just kind of like one of the traits of chaos in general. They get, you know, a big head as they get more power and they get more corrupted. They think they're better and greater as they go along. You know, that's just kind of like absolute power corrupts absolutely, you know, that old saying. So as they get more power, they think they're bigger and badder than what they are until they get taught a lesson. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's just kind of how dark powers work in general in most things.
Allies within the traitor legions. He dispatched Word-Bearers forces to Traoris under Valdrek Elias to acquire the ultimate MacGuffin of the heresy, the Fulgurite, an ancient artifact that he foresaw could be used to kill a Primarch. He eventually betrayed Elias, giving the Fulgurite to the Cabal agent John Grammaticus in the hope that it would be used to kill Vulcan, but for plot reasons that didn't work out. During the early Solar War, he appeared under the guise of a dark apostle known as the Unspeaking, which is different to the chapter of the Unspeaking, also in the Word-Bearers, and worked with Ahriman of the Thousand Suns to create the warp rift that allowed the traitor forces to bypass the defences of the solar system and assault Terra directly. Once the siege of Terra was underway, he then sought out and killed Erda, the reclusive perpetual who helped the Emperor create the Primarchs in the first place.
That's something that I hadn't known, that he killed Erda. Why would he want to kill Erda? I mean, I guess other than to prevent, well, A, to I guess piss off the Emperor, but B, also, I guess, to prevent them from potentially restarting the Primarch project, you know, creating other Primarchs in the future, should they be, you know, defeated, should the traitors be defeated and cast away. You know, if the Emperor survived, they might be able to make more Primarchs, I guess. So that would be another reason. But otherwise, it seems kind of pointless. Magnus Praetorian kind of have to deal with some sons that are not around, but their god said, no, your son is more useful than you. That's got to be rough, too. Having the god say that, nah, these other dudes underneath you, they're a little better at doing shit that we want than you are.
And then followed the trail of her thoughts to attack the companions of Ol Person on the walls of the Imperial Palace, trying to prevent them from reaching and helping the Emperor. He was stopped by Actai, formerly Cyrene Valantian of the Word-Bearers, and buried under the rubble of the Imperial walls, but he popped up again to fight alongside Abaddon in the final hours, using his dark powers to prevent Constantin Valdor and his custodians from reaching Lupercal's court to aid the Emperor. And then, finally, after the defeat of Horus, as Abaddon and his company took possession of the vengeful spirit and attempted their escape, he killed Garviel Loken, the last loyal Lumen,
motherfucker,
creating a cycle of events in the warp that would lead to the creation of the demon Samus and the start of the heresy in the first place. And all because of, like, evil or something. Of course, after the heresy, the vengeful spirit, alongside the rest of the surviving traitors, was hounded back into the Eye of Terror. The Word-Bearer's Legion took possession of the demon world of Sicarius, deep in the Eye of Terror, though Lorgar himself went into seclusion to meditate with the Chaos powers. Erebus, as the leading Dark Apostle of the Legion, became a member of its ruling Dark Council, often locked in a permanent power struggle with the other members, such as Cor Pharaon, over the Legion's next actions as they continued the long war against the Imperium. For the following 10,000 years, at least, of real space-time, he was rarely seen, though the Word-Bearers were a major force in the 13th Black Crusade, where Erebus led a vast fleet against Cadia itself. In the aftermath of the fall of Cadia and the spread of the Great Rift, the Word-Bearers led fleets across the galaxy attempting to corrupt the Imperium to their old faith, though the exact location of Erebus is still a mystery. And this is the interesting thing about Erebus as a whole. He was always something of an opportunist.
Yeah.
Throughout his long life.
Yeah, he just seems like he's a guy that was kind of like just in the right place at the right time to like fuck things up, and he knew when to essentially shoot a shot. Like I said, he knew when the opportunities were there and took advantage of them. So I mean, I don't know. He's definitely very smart, very cunning. Definitely a dick. Definitely a dick. Now that I know what happens to my boy Loken as well, even pisses me off even more. This bastard.
Lifetime of self-serving betrayal, there were definitely plans, or plans within plans, designed to hasten the fall of the Emperor. A nudge here, a small corruption there that might be useful in the future. But much of the time, the great events he set in motion seemed to be almost random, with Erebus confident that his visions from the gods, the twisting tides of fate, and his own ability to be at the centre of things would allow him to be wherever his patrons needed him to be, to steer events in their favour. Was Horus always meant to fall specifically to Eugen Temba? Or did Erebus just trust that something would come up? Was Garviel Loken's death really the one thing that was needed to cement the Horus heresy, or just another action that might prove meaningful? In the Warp, betrayal has a meaning in and of itself, and so Erebus will always be there, surviving the wrath of Primarchs, utterly dedicated to his own role as Hand of Fate, standing behind someone with a knife in his hand, ready to further the aims of his dark gods. What a bastard.
For real. For real. What a bastard indeed. Well, there you guys go. That's Erebus, the horriblest heretic of them all. Warhammer 40K lore by Arbitor Ian. As always, links will be down below in the description to this original video without my commentary and reaction under Arbitor Ian's channel. If you do me a favor, go over there and give this video a like if you enjoyed it, as well as checking out his channel. If he's got a lot of content over there that you would enjoy checking out, give the man a sub, give him some support. So, I mean, he, like, Erebus genuinely, just really from the beginning, sounded like an agent of chaos. He literally was just there to, he was just an opportunist. And he, like, even as a little kid, just sound fucked up. Like, he murdered another kid, took his place, took his name, just because, I guess. You know what I mean? And then through becoming part of this, you know, religious faction, found the Chaos Gods and just felt that he was literally an agent of chaos and was just there to, I guess, do their bidding when they needed to. That, you know, he was always, and it seems to be in the story, he was always at the right place at the right time. And when he saw the opportunity to arose to do the bidding of the Chaos Gods, he did it, and it seemed to work out. And yeah, I guess the question is, you know, was Horus always meant to fall, or could it have been someone else? And I guess everything that happened with Loken, was that, you know, meant to happen or not? You know, who knows? And that also then begs the question, you know, if Horus was always meant to fall, was this also part of something that the Emperor saw and planned around? And is everything that's still going on part of the Emperor's plan? You know what I mean? Like, I always kind of end up going back to that. You know, how much did the Emperor really see and was really able to prepare for and plan around? You know, I know that there's you know, stuff stating that you know, the future is fluid and it's hard for him to really see and plan around, but still, when you've been alive for as long as he has and he's seen what he's seen, you know, who knows? Who knows? So I guess that really is part of the question: was all this stuff meant to be? Was this part of some kind of plan from the Chaos Gods to, you know, work against the Emperor in some way? You know, was that always kind of what Erebus's destiny was? Was Horus's destiny always to be, you know, corrupted, etc., etc.? So very interesting, very interesting. But I guess, you know, one thing that we can really get out of this video is that Erebus was a dick. He's a huge, huge dick. Yeah, and no one likes him. So, but yeah, appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out. That's gonna do it for this video, guys. As you can see, we're doing this live from our YouTube members. So if you want to come in, join our discussions and hang out, we'd love to have you guys in here to hang out and chill and watch these videos and chit chat while we go through them. There's a join button down below if you would like to. You can click that and see what all YouTube membership benefits I offer. I have any kind of interest to you if you want to come and join them. But regardless, I just appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and helps the channel grow. And I just greatly appreciate you guys coming in and taking out the time to you know, check out the video. So thank you guys. Hope you're having yourselves a wonderful day whenever you're watching this. We'll see you on the next.